All right, so apparently the big news today, at least among some communities, is that the Saudi Arabia ended its agreement after 50 years to sell oil in dollars, aka the petrodollar. And therefore, the dollar is going to collapse and everything is going to hell in a handbasket. It's not. Don't worry. I'm Ethan with Fundamentals of Finance. I'm a CFA charter holder and investment professional that specializes in international equities. And today, I'm going to give you 4 reasons why this is nothing more than BS clickbait. And actually, before we even get to reason number 1, okay, consider the sources. Look who is promoting these articles, okay? This community, CoinGate, like Coin Media, mostly it's crypto sites. Now, why would a crypto site be trying to stoke fears in the US dollar? Because if people are afraid of the US dollar, then they will go into dollar alternatives like gold and crypto. And if everybody's buying crypto, the value of crypto will go up. So you got to consider the sources here. You're not going to find a lot of these stories, and maybe any of these stories on mainstream media. So there's reason number 1 to be a little bit skeptical about what you're hearing. Okay, but let me tell you why this is not newsworthy. This is not a big deal, and countries are not ditching the dollar, and you do not need to worry about this. Okay, but let's stick with Saudi Arabia. Okay, reason number 1. By far, the largest oil futures market is in dollars, and you don't just walk to the grocery store and buy oil like you would buy a package of Skittles or something. Like you mostly buy oil on the futures market, and the futures are in dollars. Is there a Chinese futures market? Yes, there has been. I think they started it, I don't know, like at least 10 years ago, I believe, a long time ago, and it really hasn't picked up much traction. So Saudi Arabia already could sell oil before this happened, before the end of this supposed agreement, that has apparently been going on for 50 years. They already could sell oil in other currencies besides the dollar, but they mostly didn't because no one really wants to buy it in other currencies. And that brings us to point number 2. The dollar is the world's reserve currency, and which means it's really not that easy to convert most currencies into most other currencies. They have to be really related to each other. Like, so, the Aussie dollar to the New Zealand dollars, they're really close countries. They do a lot of business together. You can convert those pretty easily. The euro to the pound, right? But most, like, the UK pound to, the Colombian peso, like that, there's just not a big market for that for almost all currency pairs. So mostly what countries do, this isn't specific to oil. This is just any global transaction. This is why the dollar is the reserve currency, because it's very easy to convert anything into the dollar and then the dollar into anything else. And so it's much easier and cheaper and more efficient for countries to go through the dollar as a reserve currency. That's why it's so difficult to knock it down from that status. And it's also why, it's reason number 2 why most countries are not going to want to buy oil from Saudi Arabia in any country or in any currency other than the dollar. So this is just really not that big of a concern. Reason number 3, this is my favorite, actually. I don't know if most people know this, but Saudi Arabia's currency is actually pegged to the dollar. It's pegged to the dollar. So in order to maintain a currency peg, and I did an entire currency course, you can go find for free. There's a link in the bio. But in order to maintain a currency peg, you have to have ample reserves of that currency, which in this case is the dollar. So they need a lot of dollars in order to maintain their currency peg, the stability of their currency, which underpins the stability of their entire economy. And in order to get a bunch of dollars, you know what they can do? Sell oil in dollars. That's why they're doing it, because that brings in a lot of dollars, and it allows them to maintain the stability of their currency peg to the dollar, and it allows them to pay for all the other things that they want to do to diversify their economy away from oil. Because you buy materials, construction, they don't produce a lot of stuff in Saudi Arabia other than oil, and so if they want to expand their economy, which they very much do, then they're going to need a lot of dollars to buy things from other countries because of reason number 2 that we talked about, which is that it's much easier to do global currency transactions in dollars than it is in other currencies. When considering reason number 3, that their currency is pegged to the dollar, it seems a little strange that they would have a big incentive to weaken the dollar, doesn't it? Use your heads here, people, right? And then that brings us to reason number 4. They still, to remember that the original agreement from 50 years ago was they would sell oil in dollars and the U.S. would provide them regional security because they didn't have a big, powerful military and they were afraid of what Iran might do. Well, do you think that the Middle East has become more stable over the last year? No, they still rely on the United States for security, and that concern has arguably only gotten even greater over the past year. So are they really going to ditch the dollar for their oil transactions now and risk not having that security anymore when, like there's a war going on in the Middle East and Iran just show the willingness to directly attack Israel for the first time? I don't want to get into Middle East politics, but this would not be the time to take that risk. And so it just doesn't really make sense for many reasons for them to do this. And keep in mind, by the way, that on the fact that it's very unlikely that they would ever actually ditch the dollar, and this is all total BS. Also keep in mind that the value of the global oil trade is a very small percentage of overall currency transactions in the dollar. So I pulled up a couple of things here, right? So there's 2 things you need to think about. The global oil trade is valued at $1.45 trillion in 2022. And remember, this is with very high oil prices in 2022. So I don't know the figure in 2023 or 2024, but probably lower than this or not much higher, right? So full year, $1.45 trillion. Okay, that's the oil trade. The global oil trade in all currencies. The total dollar transactions is $2.9 trillion per day. Per day. $2.9 trillion per day versus $1.45 trillion per year for the whole oil trade, whole global oil trade. So do you think that let's imagine they did sell all of their oil, not in US dollars, in other currencies. Can you really think that would have a significant impact on the dollar? The answer is no.